Welcome to the Season 11 tier list. The video should be timestamped so you can scroll to each of the heroes in the scroll bar below. And without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with Ana, I think she goes into the C tier. She's fairly situational at the moment. She doesn't really get much play. The only time she really gets played are on dive maps like Orisa, Hollywood, situations where you're running like a Brig, Ana, Winston type of composition. But really, Lucio Kiriko is just dominating the majority of the meta right now. Hence why she's only in the C tier. Next up is Ashe. So the key idea to understand with Ashe being A tier at the moment is that because Sojourn is so much worse than Ashe currently, because obviously the Railgun nerf, which we'll get into, Ashe has got much more consistent damage. Headshots do more if you're playing Ashe. Dynamite is a great source of damage. You've still got that verticality in the coach gun, which is still super important. It's why Ashe has come into the fray and not just Cassidy, because the power slide from Sojourn is still pretty good. So Ashe is kind of like a pseudo, more consistent version of Sojourn, and that's why she's in A tier right now. That's why she's getting played in Face It League in the Esports World Cup playoffs. Next up is Baptiste, and he's going straight into the S tier. Now, I kind of debated on whether Bap should be S tier or A tier. I ultimately decided to put him in the S tier, but that's mainly because he's just so versatile. You know, like he can fit into a variety of different compositions. He can fit into like a Bap Illari Sigma type poke composition. He can do that double flex thing on Midtown. He's able to play in Circle Royale. Obviously, he's great in the Lucio Bap Sigma comps. He can also play with Mauga if need be. He's very flexible, and in ranked, obviously, jack of all trades hero. I've spoken about that beforehand, but he can really fit with most compositions, and that's what I decided to put him in S tier for. After Bap is Bastion. He pretty much goes into the C tier. I think everyone could have seen this coming, to be honest. Very situational brawl pick. Sustain is fairly low, again, ever since that change where he doesn't get armor when he turns into his turret form. He's basically been bottom of the tier lists every single time. I genuinely think if you reduce his cooldown on his turret form by 2 seconds, if it goes from 12 to 10 seconds, that could be a big buff for Bastion, and I think we would see more of him being played, but for now, he's just very situational. It's hard to get value out of turret form, all that good stuff. Next up is Brig, and she is also going in the C tier. Similar case as Ana, I'm going to make this one quick. It's basically the same cases, right? Like, dive is a meta. You don't need the defensive utility that Brig brings. If you look at where Brig or what Brig is good against and what she's bad against, the meta heroes right now being Pharah, Mauga, Sigma even to some extent too, Echo as well, to a lesser extent Venture, she's just not very good into those kind of heroes. So that's why she's staying in C tier, but again, if you're playing on like a Winston or a Hollywood, you can play Brigana with that. Next up is Cassidy. This is a pretty obvious pick. Ever since the Sojourn nerf, he's just been played 99% of the time. The main reason for that is his consistent damage. Now, I need to make this very clear. His nade change to his flashbang is mostly a buff to Cassidy. The reason being is because the CC or the hinder is completely instant, which means Cassidy is much better against people like Tracer and especially Venture, to a lesser extent Echo as well, and to a lesser extent Genji, but he's actually really good now because of that hinder change. It's super hard to run Venture into Cassidy, and I think when we go into Venture, in fact I might show the clip right now, so you see here, bad drill dash by me. I meant to drill dash to the left side here, right? But if this was old nade, he doesn't hinder that, you know? Like, there's like a short period of time where the hinder will latch onto me and I'll be able to burrow out of that. Of course, the high noon change is also a buff too. I do admittedly think teams are getting used to the movement speed increase, but that's generally a buff. Yeah, I mean, the roll nerf doesn't really matter too much. You can still roll and live through a pulse bomb, which is kind of crazy. By far the most consistent DPS, way better than Sojourn right now. Pretty much a must play. The only downside to Cassidy is, again, the lack of verticality. So on a map like Esperanza, for example, you might not want to play him. You might want to play an Ashe instead, but really great in 9 out of 10 situations, to be honest. Afterwards is D.Va. D.Va is going into the C tier. She did get a booster buff and a spread reduction, but it's not going to mean much in the grand scheme of things. The armor change really hurts D.Va because she basically gets a damage half now, and that's really rough for the character. He has got a fairly good matchup into Mauga, I will say. She's not terrible into that hero, and I think on more high ground based maps, then D.Va can work. I think M80 did play it. In the post edit, I might make something about D.Va. I might put some D.Va gameplay in the background there, but for the most part, she is situational. Next up is Doomfist, again another hero going into the C tier. The only bit of pro play he's gotten is from Chase on Ents, and again on Samoa. I'll play this in the background if I remember, but it didn't go that well. The main reason being is just that Doom is just so easy to force out. He's got no armor, he's got basically no big long-term way of mitigating damage, all for that in exchange for having extreme burst mobility and extreme burst damage. But right now, when you're playing into Echo, Mauga, stuff like that, Pharah as well, it's going to be really tough for Doom to get value. Next up is Echo. Echo is going into the A tier. Again, fairly self-explanatory. She's a very versatile, flexible hero, very good in the Mauga mirror where you can duplicate the enemy Mauga, get a big cardiac overdrive, and that's basically a free fight win. Her spam's fairly decent, isn't as good as Pharah's, but it's still pretty good. And yeah, she can fit into any comp really. She can fit into the Mauga stuff, the Sigma stuff, the Winston dive stuff if you want to do that. Even the Doom dive stuff, you can do that as well. Very flexible in terms of comp, very powerful. Good ultimate, good matchups, nothing to complain about really. Next up is Genji. He's gonna be the first B tier of the video. Now, I kind of debated whether to put him in A tier because, in fairness, Crazy Raccoons did play the Venture Mauga Genji comp, but I think the Pharah and the Echo, and especially the Cassidy, have come more into the fray, and I've kind of shown that it's harder to get value on the Genji nowadays. Genji's got less spam than the Echo. Because of the HP change, it's hard to burst someone down with that, burst damage combo. Blade isn't as good as Duplicate usually, or Barrage, especially stacked onto Mauga Overdrive. Still pretty good, but again, it's less so Genji being bad. He's still in beta, he's still a good hero, don't get me wrong. It's just that other heroes get more value than Genji in my opinion. Next up is Hanzo Shimada. He is going into the C tier. Again, barely any pro play, if any pro play at all. Situational pick on maps like Circle Royale, the old Colosseo before the rework where it was very linear, Havana, Junkertown, stuff like that, you're going to play Hanzo. Still very good spam damage, good matchup, fairly good matchup into Mauga, but his ultimate sucks. And again, Ashe, Cassidy, and even Echo into the other DPS to some extent too, they just offer more than what Hanzo does right now in the meta. Afterwards is Illari, and she's going B tier. Now, yes, we haven't seen much Illari in pro play, but in defense of that, Ataraxia, or as they are now known, Virtus Pro, do like bringing out the double flex on maps like Midtown, and my team that I coach, Quick Academy, we basically play Illari, if not Kiriko, and the Baptiste all the time. We never touch Lucio, which is very odd for a team, obviously, but it just kind of shows how strong Illari can be. Captive Sun is a decent ultimate for kiting, her poke is extremely strong, Pylon's still really strong, it got buffed as well, mainly for team play stuff. Yeah, I just think she's really strong, to be honest. Very underrated, I think. Next up is Junkerqueen, another hero in the C tier. I really am going heavy on the C tier here. She did get buffed from her Queen ult having a shorter cast time, I think it's half a second now, which can be quite nice. But the only situation I see Queen being played in, or Queen being better than Mauga, is playing Queen into like a Winston, Lucio, Kiriko type composition. If you're playing Queen against that, Sigma's not great into that because his shield's not going to get any value. Mauga is, again, very good into that generally speaking, but if you wanted to play Queen, that would be your opportunity. Knife is still really nice, it got a nice buff this patch as well. Command and Shout got a buff a while ago, it's 2 seconds down. Generally speaking, Queen is very situational, bad into the meta heroes being Sigma and Mauga at the moment. But still, she does have her place, and yeah. Okay, Junkrat, oh my word. Dude, the fall off of Junkrat needs to be studied. So, I mentioned a while ago in one of my Venture videos that Junkrat could technically have a place because he could be good at dueling Venture in those enclosed spaces and whatnot. He can boot Venture out of the burrow as well. That's quite nice. Again, it's in my one Venture tip for every hero. But Pharah just outshines Junkrat in every single way possible. Junkrat spam, Pharah can just do that better, and Pharah's got more mobility than she's ever had before. Junkrat just kind of doesn't have a place in the meta, sadly. Okay, next up is Kiriko, going straight into the S tier. I mean, we all know this, to be honest. It's not a big surprise. She did get a 1 second TP nerf, but it's just the versatility in Kiriko's kit that allows her to be meta. Again, she's good into Sigma comps, she's good with Mauga comps, she's good with Winston comps, she's good on Paraiso, she's good on Lijiang control sensors, like she's good pretty much everywhere, and that's what defines a meta pick at the moment. She's got multiple different playstyles, she can play with multiple different DPS, she will never be lower than an A tier in any tier list, unless she gets mega nerfed by her TP, and the range on that needs to be nerfed, but for now, she's going S tier. very, very good in team play, still very good in ranked, no reason to not play her. Next up is Lifeweaver. Now, I actually debated whether to put this guy in the C tier, because in theory, he has got a good matchup into Mauga. But on paper, or in practice rather, it doesn't actually work out that well. He just doesn't provide much. He's a heal bot, you know? And you're only really playing the Weaver to grip someone out of the Mauga ults. And that's basically it. That's all he offers, really. He's got no damage pressure. His ultimate sucks, to be frank. Just not a great hero. Obviously, he's gotten pretty much no playtime, no pro play stuff. Even Rack Attack's not playing the hero. Yeah, he's kind of cooked. He's kind of cooked. Okay, so I forgot to do Mauga Lucio, so I'm going to be very quick. Mauga is in the A tier. Again, Overdrive is super, super broken because you pair him with any hero, they'll get 30% damage reduction and 60% healing off the damage they do. Overdrive Barrage is broken. The only reason why he's not S tier is because I think Sigma's just more flexible right now in the meta, and he's less map dependent than Mauga. Mauga, you can't play him on Orisa. You just can't. You can't play him on Hollywood. Pretty map dependent, but again, still very strong where he is very strong. And Lucio is, of course, going into the S tier. Good with pretty much any comp. Good with Mauga, good with Reinhardt, good with Sigma, good with Winston, good with Doomfist, good with Ramattra. He's good with pretty much any hero in the game right now, so that's why he's sitting up in the A tier. Next up is Mei. Mei's going into the B tier. Arguably should be in the C tier. I think that's fair. I would understand why people would put Mei into the C tier. The reason I put her in B tier though is because SSG did play Mei against Ents, I believe, on Survasa, and it did do pretty well. I think Psycho actually was the one playing Mei there. But yeah, like, Mei is still pretty good. The buff was quite nice. She actually, it's funny now, because a Mei headshot does more damage than a Sojourn headshot, because it used to be 195 for Sojourn headshot, 154 Mei headshot. Now it's 154 Sojourn headshot, 174 Mei headshot. So it's kind of funny. Afterwards is Mercy. She is going into the C tier. Almost D tier. I contemplated it, to be fair, but I think the reason why I put her in C tier and not D tier is because on maps like Ilios, if you're playing a Pharah Echo double fly kind of composition, or a heavy spam composition on map like Ilios Well or Ilios Lighthouse, maybe they're running like a Reinhardt sim and they're TPing the point, Mercy's really good there. Now, obviously, Pharah doesn't need a Mercy anymore. You're not going to be seeing Mercy being played with Pharah because of the mobility, but she does have her place on those high ground based maps, on those spam based maps. She can be played, so that's why she's in C tier and not D tier right now. Next up is Moira. She's going in the B tier. Now, I know she hasn't been played and pro played that much, if at all. Correct me if I'm mistaken. I'm sure people in the comments can tell me and whatnot. But the reason why I put her here is because of the Kiriko nerf. It really it gives Moira a unique place in the meta, because her fade is 6 seconds. Kiriko's fade, or TP, is 8 seconds, right? Which gives Moira more of a reason, or gives people more of a reason to play Moira, right? Because if you're constantly dying on Kiriko and getting punished after you use TP, then Moira might be a good option for you, right? Coalescence isn't a bad ultimate. It probably charges faster than Coalescence here nowadays, to be honest. The damage is still really good. But yeah, it's that survivability you're playing Moira for. And because of the TP nerf, I think that gives Moira a bit more of a place in the meta for teams that aren't as good, or teams that want a different style to play, or teams that, you know, don't even need the utility of a Kiriko Suzu. In the C tier, I have Orisa. She did get a very small Javelin buff, but let's be real, she got killed in Season 10 mid-season. The 4-5 nerf was massive. I mean, she got so many nerfs, I don't even know what she got at this point, to be honest. I believe the 4-5-1 was the main one, but yeah, she is just not good at the moment. No reason to play her. Only situation to play her in is pretty much against the Roadhog, I'd say. Then she's like fairly goodish, but that's it, to be honest. She does still not have any fall off, which is, you know, I guess a perk, but when your sustain is so low and you're unable to close the distance, no point playing Orisa right now. Afterwards is Pharah. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So, I know, Milk, you said Pharah's going to be S tier. I actually think she's going to be an A tier, and I'll give my reasoning for that in a moment. So, before I give my reasoning as to why Pharah is an S tier, I think it's important to understand why Pharah is so good right now. The simplified version I like to give coaches and teammates is that Pharah has got the spam of Junkrat, she's got the mobility of an Echo, and she's got the dueling capability of a Tracer. She's basically got the best aspects of different heroes combined and meshed into one. she's not like a mediocre jack of all trades. She can kind of do a little bit of everything. No, she's like really good at what she does, thanks to her mobility in the rework. Yeah, the reason why I'm not putting Pharah and Esther is due to the maps. On maps like Orisa, where there's a lot of open space in first point especially, on maps like Havana, Junkertown, very long open sightline maps, then it's super hard to play someone like Pharah. So that's why she's not in Esther right now, but still very strong. And also there's just more competition in the DPS space for other flex DPS like a Genji or an Echo in particular. So that's why she's still in Aether. Still very strong. Get onto the Pharah train if you haven't already. After Pharah is Ramattra. He's also going to be joining in the A tier. Again, hasn't seen much pro play, but I think that's mainly because of how dominant Sigma and Mauga is, rather than that being a fault of Ramattra. I think if you compare Ramattra to the rest of the tanks, barring Sigma and Mauga, he's still very good. He's still got a great matchup into Reinhardt. Ultimate is still pretty good to just to live through fights and whatnot. His Nemesis form is still strong. Yeah, all around, good hero. No reason to not like the character. Reaper right now is going in the C tier. Hypothetically, he should be good with Mauga, and the Shadow Step buffs are relatively nice. But yeah, again, he's not being played in pro play at all. He's way too easy to force out with Wraith. Like, you'll TP to a position as Reaper, you'll get shot in the head a few times, and your Wraith will be forced. Like, your uptime is just so low on the character. Your playstyles are really one-dimensional, and Venture is just you but better, you know? Next up is Reinhardt. He's definitely going in the B tier. Now, Reinhardt is interesting because if you look at my last tier list, I put him in D tier, way at the bottom. And actually, he's had a good rise up, you know? Like, he was right here, he's right at the bottom. Now, I think he's actually really good, not really good, but still much better than where he was in last season in Season 10. And I think that's because he's got a good matchup into the two best tanks at the moment, being the Mauga, in which case he can just shield off the Cardiac Overdrive, he gets no lifesteal, and he's very good into the Sigma, where he can just shield off the rock, close the distance, all that kind of good stuff. But the reason why he's in the B tier is mainly because of this guy, the Ramattra, you know? Like, the second you see a Ram, or the second you see a Reinhardt, you're just gonna go Ram and beat the guy in the straight up brawl matchup. So that's why I'm putting Reinhardt below Ramattra here. Also, his team utility isn't that great when you compare it to Sigma. Look at Sigma's utility, being able to mock ranged flanks, and he has a great consistent ultimate. Look at Mauga's team utility, right? Like, Mauga's Cardiac Overdrive, paired that with Fire Barrage, is very broken, you know? Reinhardt's team utility is a shield. That's it, and it's mainly just used to counter the Mauga Overdrive. Hog is going in D tier. Now, in ranked, yes, he's gonna be a bit higher, but even in ranked, I think he's just not that great, to be honest. He got, obviously, that 50 HP nerf, which is not ideal for the character, and, as well, the breather nerf, and he got a small nerf in the May 24th patch as well. So, yeah, just not great to play Hog, and also, he's terrible into Mauga, unless you've got whole Hog, and he's terrible into Sigma, because Sigma can just perma-mark the hook. So, no reason to play the character. Unless you're like on Ilios Well or Nepal Sanctum, no reason to play Hog. Going on to Sigma, I mean, okay, this one's obvious. Sigma's S tier. Just, dude, where do I begin with this hero, to be honest? He's just so flexible. Again, he can be played with the Bapilari comp, he can be played with the Lucio Bap comp, he can be played on Midtown, Soka Royale, Havana, New Junk to Cicero Avasa, Kings Row, you name the map, he can be played on it. Even Pereso, like even on dive maps, on defense, he can still be played there. And that's mainly because of his ability to mark angles, mainly because of his range, and he can live. He can live through a rush because of his kinetic grasp. He doesn't fall over like a Junkerqueen will, because Junkerqueen, her only sustain is shouts. So that's why Sigma's S tier should be pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, he kind of needs a small enough, not a big one, but a small enough, I'd say, to turn him back a little bit. Sojourn. Yeah, I mean, again, this one's fairly obvious. She's going in C tier. The Rogue enough hit her hard, and the only sense it makes to put Sojourn higher up is if you're Plat or Bronze. Or Plat below, I'd say, where you're never gonna you're never hitting your railguns in the first place, you know? So the railgun nerf didn't make sense. You're only getting like a fire rate buff, but again, in higher level play, where railgun one-shots are really important, that really hit Sojourn like a truck. And the times that she was played in pro play, again, I'll record this later, it was the Ents versus Peps game where Kai played Sojourn on Esperanza. He lost that map, by the way, and Sojourn is better than Cassidy on Esperanza because of the verticality. He still lost that map. And on Midtown, where Zodiel, he played Sojourn, he lost that map, I think. They only capped 60% of the way. Again, even when Sojourn's been played in pro play, she's failed tremendously. So that's why she's in C tier right now. Next up is Soldier76. Again, going in C tier. Honestly, he might go in D tier if I give it a bit more thought, because again, he's just getting zero play in pro play at the moment. The USP, the reason why you play Soldier is for his sprint, because he can sprint around the map, take a good angle, get some good consistent damage, right? He's a hybrid between the traditional hit scans in terms of like Ashe and Cassidy, and flankers like Sombra and Tracer. But he can't flank, right? He just can't flank, because Cassidy's going to deny him, Genji's going to deny the Soldier, Tracer's going to deny the Soldier, and Venge's going to deny the Soldier. Like, he just can't, he can't flank. Actually, yeah, I think he's in D tier, to be honest. I actually think he's in D tier. I think Sojourn is better than Soldier, genuinely. Like, I just don't know, where would you play Soldier? Like, he's also got no verticality. Like, Soldier is terrible in the dive. Like, at least Soldier has that kind of argument going for her, but Soldier doesn't. Like, I just don't get, like, maybe in ranked, right? Like, where, it's kind of like 0 in Rainbow Six Siege. That's how I would describe Soldier. Like, terrible in team play, maybe good in ranked, maybe good in, like, solo queue platinum, right? Okay, after Soldier is Sombra, she's going in beta. I mean, not much to say with the character, to be honest. I think the main reason why she's here is because of EMP. EMP is still super strong. Neutral kit is not bad as well, but I think teams need to learn how to adapt playing with a Sombra. Again, Mauga Sombra is kind of a dead comp, I'm not gonna lie, but I think MAT did play Sombra again. I'll record that if I remember, and they did find some success with the character as well. So next up is Symmetra. She is also going to go in the B tier. Got a nice 25 HP buff, and again, Backbone was caught, I say caught, he was playing Symmetra in the finale against Ent in the Grand Finals on Oasis, and he did a pretty good job. Obviously, Symmetra gets 120 healing per second while in Mauga Overdrive, while beaming on level 3. Like, that is kind of insane, you know? Like, she gets over two Mercy Pockets, and stack that with the 25% faster charge rate and the extra HP, she's actually pretty darn good. The main issue with Sim, obviously the reason why she's not higher, is that she loses to angles, you know? She's terrible into Pharah, who's very strong right now, not great into Echo, fairly map dependent-ish, but yeah, I think on the Junkerqueen, Zuravasa, Oasis, Nepal, Lijiang, that's where Symmetra can be really strong. Alright, next up is Torb. Fairly self-explanatory. I unironically think he's better than Soldier, because I can see a situation in which you'd play Torb, which is like, again, an anti-dive comp on like Orisa or something, but he's just, like, again, the lack of consistent damage compared to Cassidy, the lack of consistent damage compared to pretty much everyone above Torb right now, just no reason to play Torb right now in the current meta. Maybe even D tier, but I don't think he's as bad as Soldier. At least he has some kind of a purpose, but, you know, Soldier doesn't right now, so that's why he's staying in the C tier. Next up is Tracer. I want to be Tracer. Yeah, she's going in the B tier. First time in a while she hasn't been in A tier or S tier. And again, the main reason for that, I made an entire video on it. It's because of Venture. The Venture just shuts down Tracer. I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely think Venture is a hard counter to Tracer. I made an entire video going over that in pro play, giving pro examples, and again, we're not seeing that much Tracer in pro play. We're still seeing her quite a bit, don't get me wrong, but I think that's more out of comfort than anything, to be honest, and more out of map. Still a flexible hero, it's just that how hero matchups into heroes like Venture, and considering that characters like Pharah, Ashe, Echo, they get more value over a prolonged period of time, that's why I'm putting Tracer in B tier. Venture's A tier, I think they've got their place in the meta, for sure. I think they completely stomp on top of Tracer. They carried Raccoons and Falcons both to the finals there. And yeah, I think Venture can also work in double flex, believe it or not. Controversial take, I know. But I genuinely think Venture can work in double flex because of their ability to control the map so well. Yeah, I genuinely think that they are a very good hero. The reason why they're not in S tier is, again, due to maps. Similar case as Pharah, to be honest. Very, very similar case to Pharah in terms of why they're not S tier, in my opinion. But yeah, still very good. Ultimate isn't as bad as people think. And yeah, just a very solid, high reward, low risk hero. And Widow is going in the C tier as well. Again, she's a fairly self-explanatory hero. Same case as Mercy, same case as Zen. In terms of, like, again, you're going to play Widowmaker on those Savannas, on the Junker towns, where the distance is long. Nothing much to say with Widow, to be honest. Next up is Winston. He is going into the B tier. I think some teams, I don't know which teams, but I can say that, again, people are playing Winston on the typical dive maps. Like, again, Paraiso, Hollywood, that kind of stuff. You're going to still be seeing Winston. Still good against Sigma comp as well. Obviously, you're not going to be playing him against Mauga comps a lot of the time. But, yeah, I genuinely do think he's playable, especially if the enemy team are playing like a Sigma comp. I think Ball's in C tier. I could be persuaded to put this guy higher. I could be. I actually genuinely don't know, is my honest answer. I'm just thinking, what comp would you run Ball right now in the meta with? Or Ball Tracer Sombra? Is that the comp? I mean, I think that's probably the best comp for Ball right now, is Ball Tracer Sombra stuff. Because he can't be played in many comps right now. You just can't. Because people will run Mauga and shit on the guy, or Sigma and shit on the guy, or Reinhardt and shit on the guy. Ramattra to a lesser extent, admittedly, but still. Ball would be good if Zen was good. You would see Ball being played 24/7 if Zen was meta. But Zen is not meta right now. You would see Ball would be S tier if Zen was S tier. That's what I'm going to say. Zarya, she is going into the D tier. Yeah, I was going to say C tier, but she is awful. There is not one situation I can think of where you would play Zarya. Not one. I tried cooking some Zarya Avenger comp in my head right now, but Zarya just gets ran over. He's got 550 HP, bubbles that pop like that, you know, they pop immediately. Like, she'll get ran over, you know? Like, a Mei is all it takes, a Sigma, Ramattra, Mauga, like, Reinhardt, like, she's so bad. Like, don't play Zarya. Finally, we have Zen. He's going in C tier. Again, similar case to Brigitte, Honor, and Mercy. Good on the Circle Royale type comps. Good on the Havana, poke-based, Junkertown kind of situations. But yeah, obviously, no one's going to play him right now. No one's playing him in the current meta. No one's playing him outside of those maps. He's either C tier or he's S tier. You know, I think that's kind of the funny thing with Zen at the moment. Okay, so this is the final tier list here. I've done a little key in the top right, as you can see, where the heroes highlighted in red are ones that I think could move up in the meta, and the ones highlighted in blue are ones I think that could move down. So covering that really quickly, I think Ram could move down a little bit, mainly because he hasn't got great matchups into the top two tanks at the moment, being Mauga and Sigma. I think Venture can move down too, depending on the map that you play Venture on, and the fact that Echo, Pharah, Ashe, Cassidy especially, they can really hamper Venture's ability to get in that close range and do their combo, so I think they can move down for that reason. Mei, I think, could also move down as well, mainly because, again, based on maps, she's going to be situational on maps like Lijiang Control Center, also Avasa or New Junk City, stuff like that, Circle Royale as well. She's a bit situational in those cases. Moira, I think if the gap between Kiriko and Moira is still as big as it is, then I don't think Moira is in B tier anymore. Sombra, I put her in B tier because her neutral kit is a little bit weak, and if you're just playing for EMP, the neutrals are going to be tough, to say the least. So yeah, the reason why D.Va I think can move up is mainly because she's got fairly good matchups into the heroes at the top at the moment. She can eat Barrage, she can eat Cardiac Overdrive, she's got flexible playstyles, and she's got great map control. So that's why I think there's an argument, at least, for D.Va being in B tier. Ball, I think there's an argument for him being in B tier, mainly because people don't know how to play him yet, and I think people need to experiment more with Ball. I think he's unironically one of the most underrated picks, especially in ranked, so again, not a bad pick at all, just that people don't know how to play him. And Hog, he's mainly here just because people are gonna cry, and yeah, like, people are gonna cry saying that Hog's S tier and that they struggle so much against Hog, and that the one-shot's broken, and all kinds of BS. Just go Sigma Mei, like, just go Sigma Mei. Go Mauga if you want as well. Go Echo, go Pharah. Literally go any of these top heroes and you'll deal with Hog just fine. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe and leave your comments down below. And until next time.